I'm Neil Dubord, Chief of the Delta Police Department. This week on our show,
I was not just going to go home and just die. I was going to do my death my way, and that included going to work and finishing the endeavors I started.
Bend, don't break. This is a Delta Police podcast.
Hear more about how police officers strengthen their resiliency through the power of story.
well, welcome to Bend Don't Break podcast. So it's a great day for me here today because at this point in time, I have not interviewed anyone from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP. So we have some listeners that are not from Canada, and certainly the Mounted Police have a historic and a great reputation sort of outside of Canada as well. So welcome, and it's a big thrill for me to be able to have you here. And I am with Cathleen today, Cathleen Falebrinza.
Right, you got it right the first time.
I know, I practiced that about 3 or 4 times here, so thank you. Anyways, so before we start, I just wanted to talk a little bit to our listeners, and we're so fortunate to have so many great first responders and others that listen to the Bend Don't Break podcast. And every week I talk about having opportunity to read emails and letters that come in from others that find it inspirational, find that they're learning lessons of resiliency. And I wanted to read just a couple of the emails that I received here over the last week. And here's the first one that starts with, "Hello, sir. I just want to say what an awesome job these podcasts have done. I truly love listening to these. It's hard to hear some of these tough stories, but it shows we are all human, to show we are not alone in our struggles and that we can make it out on the other side. I really, truly want to say thank you to you and Aaron for coming up with the idea. And like I came up with this idea. Let's be very clear. This is Aaron's idea. Yourself, and for believing in it and being so open to hearing how to make things better." So I have a second one here as well, which is about the same length that I wouldn't mind reading because these people take the time to write them. So it's important that we also recognize their ability to do so. And it says, "To all, just want to compliment you on your podcast, Bend Don't Break. Having officers and those involved in such issues providing their insights and perspectives in such an intimate and profound way has to be therapeutic in of itself. All too quickly, most of us experiencing these traumatic and challenging scenarios are too quick to put them away and to try to put it behind us. Thank you for your efforts in placing this issue on the front burner. I can look to my own deep well of experiences and know the benefit of telling someone the depths to which these scars burrow and relief provided by someone willing just to listen, to know and to share that demons call with can help." So in other words, I guess he is being able to talk about it he finds it therapeutic. So that brings us sort of why we're here today. And you have an interesting story.
I do have an interesting story.
And I can't wait to actually get into it. So tell me, first of all, you are very proud to be an RCMP officer, and tell me a little bit about when you joined and sort of how you got there.
Well, I was invited to join the training program at Depot in 2004. Big day for me. And then I graduated January 2005. I was posted in Quesnel. I love being a Mountie. I love our heritage. You know, I'm still in love with this organization 15 years later. And I can't say I've had one bad day in policing here. And it's been an honor to be a Mountie and just be part of the RCMP and wear that surge and represent. So
I love hearing that. And number one, there's sparkle in their eyes. If anyone was sitting around the table, they'd see the sparkle in your eyes. Yeah. And we have Sergeant Ray Athwell, which is also in the studio with us, and he shares a common bond with you as well. And you know, it was Ray that brought your story to our attention, and I'm grateful for that. And Ray shares that same level of passion and resiliency about what we're going to talk about, and that's a little bit about sort of what you faced as far as a health concern, and to see people that have the ability to come back in such a strong and dynamic way and contribute in a meaningful fashion to our communities after significant health concerns is amazing. So tell me a little bit about what you were experiencing when you began to get sick.
Well, you know, it's kind of hard to start at that time of when I began to get sick because I was really good at ignoring it. So I was an ambitious police officer, and it was a priority in my life. I loved the work, and I loved the fact that I could work anywhere in the province, and I was married to an ambitious, I still am married, to clarify, still married to an ambitious person, and it was really easy to just ignore what was going on. So I did a few years of general duty, and I fell into a major crime life, and you work and you love the work and you feed off the work. But you have a tendency, as a lot of us know, to start maybe not paying attention to signs that things aren't going well. In retrospect, I think I have struggled with breathing really for years, and even looking back to days before training where I just couldn't get to a certain point, but I just attributed it to, whatever factor and kept going and played sports and became a Mountie and worked full time and worked shift work and thought nothing of it. And I started to have little hints of breathing problems, but you attribute it to asthma or other factors. I didn't really pay attention. Not a smoker, never a smoker. No allergies. Just attributed to being tired and maybe not looking after myself. And then you go to the next call and you just keep going. And finally, about 2013, 14, I really started to notice a decline. Things like walking up the stairs at work. Like, we were on the second floor. By this time, I was posted in the serious crime unit in Chilliwack. And everybody takes the stairs. Nobody, you take the stairs. That's what you do. But I noticed at the top of the stairs, I think, I'm sure short of breath. That's silly. You need to go work out more. And I just kind of ignored it. But there was these smaller symptoms. And I actually had a coworker say to me, he's like, Kathleen, your lips are blue. And I thought, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I kept working. And
blue lips is a clue.
Blue lips is a clue, just for everyone out there listening, that something's wrong. And finally, I just gave in to the fact that something was wrong and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I started thinking about the safety issue, because then I recognized I had an issue with my breathing. And I started thinking about, you're backing up other members. There's other members depending on you, and now you have something wrong and you can't ignore it. And really, that was the pushing factor for me to pursue what was happening, was my mindset of other people are depending on me. My family's depending on me. I need to look after this. So, long story short, I was referred to the Lung Center in Vancouver, and I sat across the table from this brilliant woman who said to me, I'm pretty sure that you have this disease called pulmonary fibrosis. And I thought,
standard spelling.
Yeah. I thought, okay, right. Pulmonary fibrosis, they'll fix it. And she said, and there's no cure. And essentially what's going to happen is your lungs are going to scar and harden, and you're going to die. And that could happen in 2 months, and that could happen in 2 years. We just don't know. But right now, you need to go home, and you can't leave the hospital without oxygen. And this is going to be your new life.
So stop right there. So tell me, how many years have you been an RCMP officer by this time?
It was about 2014, so I joined in 2005. So
9 years. Yep, something like that. Okay, you're in major crimes. You're doing investigations.
I'm in a serious crime unit doing major investigations.
Yeah. Okay. What's happening in your home life?
Well, I have 2 stepchildren that were out of the house at the time. At that time, yes, they were out of the house. It was my husband was just amazing. And literally is the one that carried me through this process. Without him, I think I never would have made it. But he was so supportive, and I still needed to be convinced that my health was first, not my career. And then comes the news of the only way you're going to survive this is if you have a double lung transplant. And who needs a transplant? To me, that's what happened on Grey's Anatomy. And everyone on Grey's Anatomy dies. So don't watch Grey's Anatomy if you need a transplant. That's just my advice now. But it was just overwhelming. And
so you're in the hospital. This young doctor, or not young, but this woman doctor tells you have this disease that's incurable.
Yes.
Are you alone?
No, Stuart's by my side.
So Stuart's your husband and RCMP officer as well. That's right. Yeah. Okay. And you're a long ways, I imagine you're a long ways from home if you're living in Chilliwack, right?
Yep.
You're 90 minutes from home?
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about that ride home.
I think the ride home was, I think he knew, and he told me that at some point, that he knew something was really wrong. I didn't accept it. I kept kind of quantifying why this wasn't happening, it's going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine. I really did not accept the news. It took me a couple of months to finally process your life's never going to be the same. You have this new normal of living on oxygen, and now you have to introduce this new life to everyone around you that knows you as this policeman who's strong and makes all these big dinners for your family and friends, and your whole identity changed in an instant. And that took me several weeks to process and accept.
So I want to sort of put, and these are my words, so correct me if I'm wrong. You're somebody, you're a detective, you're doing great work, you're doing these serious crimes, and people work their whole lives to get to those positions and do those kind of investigations. And by the time you get home that afternoon, you're no longer there.
Well, I can say I was no longer there, but I was.
Okay, tell me about that.
I thought, I just had this epiphany that I'm a policeman and I'm going to be a policeman till the day I die, and there's no disease that can take that away from me. And I promptly let my supervisor know and my team know. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it my way. I'm going to own it, and I'm just going to do what I need to do to make my life valuable. And I worked with an amazing group of people that embraced that wish of mine and really helped me carry through. So I took some time to just heal myself and kind of establish direction as to what I needed to do. And then I went back to work.
Okay, so let me get this right. So you have received this diagnosis that your lungs are going to scar and that you're going to die.
They're scarring and they're going downhill, and every day could be different.
Okay, so you leave there, you sort of collect your thoughts, you do a little bit of reflecting, and you decide to go back to work.
Yep.
When you could have booked off sick.
Yep.
Yep. So you decide to go back. How come?
Because it's who I am.
Okay.
And it was important to me to see through those things, those files that I had started. And it was important to me to keep my life as normal as possible for myself and my family, but yet still make what was happening okay. It was part of accepting this inevitability of death, but I was doing it on my terms. I was not just going to go home and just die. I was going to do my death my way, and that included going to work and finishing the endeavors I started.
So obviously you don't die. You're here. So I mean, so no one's going to be able to say, yeah, so that's the great news. But would you change anything now?
No.
Okay.
Because I feel like the lessons I've learned, I think I opened a lot of doors for myself and other people in my organization. I was a visibly disabled member. I showed up to work with an oxygen tank on my back.
Tell me about that. So you've got one of those tanks?
Yeah.
And those things that come in the nose, the little hoses?
Yeah. So I had to start wearing oxygen full time. I needed it. I couldn't live without it. I could survive on room air for 30 seconds. That was about it. And I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to have to do this. I'm going to have to go out in public, and I'm going to have to wear oxygen. And that was really hard, to put on a tank and go to work.
Oh, and, agreed.
Yeah. And
changes your profile.
I walk into the office and wearing oxygen. And I did that for some time.
Are you seeing anyone? Do you go see any psychologist?
Yes.
Do you see a counselor? What?
I started seeing a fantastic fellow, and I still see him to this day. And he helped me cope with that process and moving on and acceptance, because now you're working, you're really sick, you're managing this illness, and you're trying to also manage your death. And it was a lot to handle, but I think the way that I did it worked for me. Might not work for everybody, but it worked for me. And I was really lucky that I had the support of all those people that I worked with. So you're grieving your life, and you're grieving your career, and you're grieving your family. But I did it the way that I wanted to do it.
But most people would crawl into a shell and say, why me? I mean, you're a young lady, you're active, you're vibrant, you're obviously a good police officer. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you just say, why me? I
did have days of why me. I had days of, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe that I'm walking around wearing an oxygen tank, trying to find an exhibit. It to me was surreal. I had days of, it was just surreal, and days where you just had to stop and gather yourself, talk it out with somebody. Stuart went an earful pretty much every day, and accept it and move on. And it was pretty much the only way you could function, because I wasn't going to just lie in bed and watch Netflix every day. And I made it a priority to look after my mental health. And part of that was, as ridiculous as this sounds, was walking on my treadmill. So it would be like no incline on a 1. But
with your oxygen tank.
I turned my oxygen up, and I'd put on a Netflix show, and I would just walk slowly for an hour every day, because it was good for my mental health. It kept my body strong, because now you have to start thinking about, okay, now I have to prepare myself for a transplant. Double lung transplant's the largest surgery they do in this province. And I have to be ready, and I have to be the candidate that they pick that day. So I had also that sort of that competitive spirit, as terrible as that sounds, but that kind of kept me going to keep myself healthy and to be a viable candidate for organ donation.
So they mentioned organ donation. What's the hope of that? Do they tell you what the hope is? Like, do they say you're going to be 1 in 1,000? You're going to be 1 in 2,000?
They give you general figures. They don't want They tell you that every transplant journey is different. There's so many variables in the decision making that they won't really tell you anything. But they do tell you to prepare for your death. So I did.
So, but you have this hope for a transplant.
Yep.
Okay, and so you get this diagnosis in 2014. You go back to work. You're doing your thing. How long do you work?
I worked till November 2015. It got to the point where I just couldn't bring enough oxygen to work, and I was just getting too sick.
So you go through a tank a day?
I'd go through 2 or 3 tanks a day. So I'd come with a tank on my back, and we would call it, actually my corporal named it, my tank. I'd wear my tank to work.
Hank the tank on the back.
Hank the tank on my back. They called him Corporal Hank. And I know, we were that.
You got to laugh though, right? You do.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it was fantastic because I worked with people that were just so engaging with the whole process. And I'd take my lunchtime tank because I knew at lunch I'd run out and I have to switch tanks. And then I would work till that tank got low, and I would drive home about 3 p.m. So,
boy.
Yeah. What
about sleeping? How do you sleep with a tank?
Well, at home you have a big giant concentrator. So essentially, when I went home, I lived on a 50-foot hose. So I had a hose that was 50 feet long, and that's what I lived on.
Lived on a garden hose.
Yeah, well, kind of a garden hose, but a little smaller. It delivered my oxygen, and that's what I did. I lived in a 50-foot radius in my home.
Costs?
Cost
financial?
Me. I have to be honest, my organization looked after me very well. So
Wonderful.
When you think about what some people have gone through, transplant is not really a subsidized illness in this country and in this province. And some people can't afford to have transplant. You actually go through a financial, you have to provide your finances before you're approved. And I'm lucky that I had an organization that said 100%, we're going to support you through this. And I know other people that can't say the same. So I'm very privileged in the fact that I was very well looked after.
That's wonderful. So I want to come back to the fact then now that you're at home, okay, yes, and how it works towards, a potential transplant, I guess, at one point in time. But I want to talk a little bit more about the ability for the organization to reduce that stress, right? Because it could be the other way. Mm-hmm. I mean, there could be additional stress. So not only are you concerned about your health, you're concerned about finances, you're concerned about your job, you're concerned about your family, all those other things that add up to it, right? We're not just about work and just about health.
My organization and my friends were in the organization were amazing in the sense of I was never left lingering for interaction with people. My OIC at the time, my superintendent, and others always checked in to say, how are you? But is there anything you need? Do you need anything? Do you need us to help organize home care? Do you need help organizing healthcare? Anything I needed, I just had to make a call and it would have been provided. But on top of that, I had people that came to my home, brought me a Starbucks and sat with me and we talked. And we just talked like normal people. Like I wasn't sitting there with this giant oxygen compressor in my living room. We just hung out and talked. And that actually really helped keep me connected to my workplace. So it was not like I went off into the distance and there I was gone. I was connected and I was included. I was invited to parties. I was invited to certain things that went on within our organization. I was included. And that to me was priceless in my return to work.
Okay, here's the tough question. Is that because of Cathleen Falebrinza, or is that because everyone gets that treatment?
I don't know. I think part of it is because of me. And I think because I owned what I had going on, I was pretty open about it. And I made people talk to me about it because I'd walk around the detachment. And if you walk around the detachment, you've got a cast on your arm Be like, hey, what happened? What happened? I walk around the detachment with an oxygen tank on, and everyone's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, dude, I'm wearing an oxygen tank. We can talk about it. Clearly something's wrong. And I think part of my fact that I was able to maintain those relationships was I was also open to those relationships. It's just, that's my experience. I've reached out to other people who are in similar experiences, not transplant, but off work for whatever reason. And sometimes they want you there and sometimes they don't. So I can't truly answer that question.
Okay. I'm not going to let you get away that easy, but we'll come back to it. That's right. So you're at home?
Yeah.
How long are you at home? I
was at home a year to the day of my transplant.
So often, I remember when I spoke to Sergeant Athwell and talking about his wife, you get these false calls where there's a hope. All of a sudden, get ready. You're going to get a transplant tomorrow. Get down here. Any of those?
No, my transplant experience was completely chaotic and different than everyone else's.
Let's hear.
So I was officially listed. So you kind of wait till you get sick enough. So it's a fine line between sick enough and too sick. So you need to have your transplant in that time frame. So I was listed on August 10th. You're sick enough.
Of 2015.
2016.
16.
Okay, you're sick. You're at the threshold. Let's list you. Okay. So you have all this protocol you follow, and they say, we'll call you in the morning. You have a big breakfast, grab a book, drive to VGH. We're going to put you in a room. You're going to be there all day. You'll probably have the surgery sometime around midnight the next day. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. The phone rang at 4 a.m, and I thought something was wrong with, who calls you at 4 a.m? Well, people on the transplant team call you at 4 a.m. And I heard my husband say, no, yeah, she's stable. Yeah, no, you're right, double lung. And I thought, oh, shit. And I immediately tried to think of every reason why today was not a good day for a transplant. I mean, I thought, okay, you got to come up with something. Today is not a good day to go in for this surgery. And I remember sitting at the edge of the bed thinking, I don't actually think I can walk. It was overwhelming. And you talk about in combat or in those high stress situations at work, I finally experienced that, but it was in my bedroom. And I remember saying to Stuart, I don't think I can walk. And he's like, get your stuff and get in the car. We're going. And I thought, okay, because they were like, get here now. And we're like, all right. So we grab my little to-go bag and he fills up a few tanks and we get in the car and we drive like stink to Vancouver. I'm sure we broke traffic barriers in every jurisdiction, whatever. So we get there and they're literally waiting for me in the emergency room. They slap a wristband on me and walk me down and start getting me ready for surgery. I'm thinking, this is not how you said it was going to go. This is not working for me. And they didn't care. And they hook you all up and they roll you into this pre-surgical room. And both Stu and I are just stunned because this is in a period of a couple of hours.
And it's still 6 a.m.
It's still, it's 6 a.m. And I've just learned that the surgeon, Dr. John Yee, had just finished a transplant. And he was going to do another one because there was viable lungs that would work for me. And I thought, doesn't he need a nap? Literally. So he walks in and he's like, hey, and he's just totally casual because he does this every day. And I said, hi. And he has his phone out and he's making small talk. And he said, yeah, I'm just waiting to see if these lungs are good. And then we're just going to go in and get this done. And I thought, but this isn't how you said it was going to happen. And he went on to say, between this, Kathleen, these lungs I picked for you, it was between you and 5 other people. And I said, well, why me? And he says, well, it's National Redhead Day. And for those of you who can't see,
That's right.
I'm a redhead.
Yes.
And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's National Redhead Day. It makes sense. And then he gets a ding on his phone and he looks and he said, these lungs are good, let's go. And that was it. And off I went into the surgical room and I thought and I said to the anesthesiologist, this is really messed up. And he says, I'll give you something to unmess it for you. I used a different word than mess.
Yeah.
And that was all I remember. And when I look back, the time that I got the phone call to the time I was waiting in the like the pre-room for my surgery, I have no recollection, like none. I just don't remember it. I had conversations with loved ones. Stu and I had some deep conversation. I have no recollection of anything. So, and I still don't to this day.
What would his memory be of it? Stu?
His memory would be chaos and fear. Like he was just afraid. But we also kind of both felt we were always positive that this wasn't going to kill me and that they wouldn't take that chance unless they knew I was going to live. So it was just, we got to get through the next 10 hours.
Okay.
So
you wake up, you got a pair of lungs.
I wake up, I have a new pair of lungs. Things didn't go so well for me.
Okay, let's hear.
I was so sick. I think I was sicker than I allowed myself to believe and presented. And after in my surgery ended up being longer than normal. And to the point where the surgeon had said, I don't know how you were actually functioning. I had my transplant in November. He said, you would have been dead in February. And so subsequently, my diaphragm wasn't working. So I woke up and I have these new lungs and I can't breathe. So I had this uncontrolled pain. So I spent a couple of weeks in the ICU trying to get that managed, the pain managed, but as well trying to figure out how to breathe. And you're lying there and you have chest tubes and I think I don't know how many staples. You're wired shut. Your chest is wired shut and the pain is unfathomable and you have to move. And in my mind, I thought, you have to get up and move because if you don't, you're going to die. And I knew I was in trouble because there's a lot of doctors in my room and they were all whispering, which is not a good sign. And I remember getting up and thinking, they took me off the ventilator and I said, I have to walk, get me out of bed. And they're like, okay. And that's all I did for the next 2 weeks in the ICU was try and walk and sometimes
Oxygen?
I was still on oxygen and I'm trying to get my diaphragm to work because if my diaphragm won't work, my lungs won't take. And my lungs were actually shrinking because I wasn't able to use them. So they were taking x-rays 4 or 5 times a day and they were shrinking because I couldn't use them. And I just made myself do it. And I remember thinking, okay, you've just get through the next hour, walk 5 minutes and then you can die. Those are the conversations I had. Like you had to dig so deep and just to get through that time. And I don't think if I didn't have that drive from training and policing and that background, I don't think I would have survived, to be truthful. Because that dig deep and no matter what, this sucks, you still have to run that extra mile, you did it. And that's probably what saved my life was getting out of bed and moving.
Tell me about family support.
I have amazing family support. The problem is at the time, you don't know it's there. Like Stuart had his support, but it was almost overwhelming to have everybody wants to be there. But it was also a very private time because I wasn't doing well and death was on both of our minds and we just wanted to be together. And we didn't want to I couldn't entertain those conversations with other people about dying. I just couldn't. I didn't have it in me. And I just wanted my husband by my side. And he stood there for a month by my side. And so I had family there, but we did a lot of, and I wasn't well, and I was in the ICU in a high acuity unit. We didn't want a lot of family there because it was too overwhelming. I couldn't cope with those relationships at the time. It was too much.
If your lungs don't work, you die. I die. There's not another set on the shelf that you can go by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's Dr. Yee saying?
He's saying, this is going to work. You just got to do this. And Stu pulled him aside and said and he's like, no, she can do this. This is what she's got to do. And I did.
And it's through the exercise that the diaphragm begins to work?
Yeah. Because essentially it's like a muscle that you haven't used in a long time. And now all of a sudden you have something to use it with, but it's so dead. And they actually wondered if I had a nerve snipped or something surgical, but it wasn't. It was just, I needed to start to learn to breathe again.
Whose lungs do you have?
I couldn't say.
Don't know.
Well, I couldn't say.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I know that I have young lungs. They're BC lungs. And yeah.
Okay. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. Really. And so the gratitude, you can't express it. And Ray and I have talked about this, when the gratitude you feel towards your donor family is inexplicable. And to me, my donor, she's a part of our family. And I don't know that she's a she, but I reference her as she. And when I first woke up and I was having problems, I would talk to her. I'm like, hey, kid, we got to get this together. And even now, like on my anniversary for my transplant, I don't say to people, oh, it's a great date. This is the date of the death of my donor and her family. And I think about her family and like, you toast your donor on Christmas and birthdays, and she's a part of our life, and she's a part of me, and she's with me every day. So
what would you like to say to that donor?
That I love her.
So you are now into coming on 2 years.
I'm 2.5 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2.5 years. Okay, good. And tell us how you're feeling.
I feel like $1 million. I feel like my life has just been wonderful. And when I think about spending time with my family and my friends and all of my loved ones, I just feel so grateful. And I feel so healthy. Like I can actually go and do things and enjoy life. And, we spent the weekend with another friend and we marched all over Victoria and drank, pop. And, like life is so good. And you have this kind of expectation of, wow, you're back, you have this new life. What are you going to do? And I thought, well, I'm not going to go climb a mountain or, I just want to live a normal, good, clean life and enjoy what, the little things have to offer.
So you're back at work.
I'm back at work.
I know that you're working at the Pacific Regional Training Center.
I am.
And what kind of work are you doing? So the Pacific Regional Training Center, for anyone that doesn't know, is a large training center on the western side of Canada that trains many, many police officers, but mostly RCMP officers.
Yeah, right now I'm dedicated to helping our new members get through their 6 months of training. So it's kind of just something that I'm seconded to this unit just to help out. And yeah, I kind of like the opportunity of just doing something different and being there for new members and just trying to help them get through what they need to get through.
Full-time? Back
full-time. Back full-time. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I know. How
about Corporal Hank?
Corporal Hank's been retired.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's good.
To me, it's almost like a dream, those few years. Like you think, how did that even happen? And when I look back and I see pictures of myself on oxygen, and I thought, how did I get up every day and go to work? Like some days now I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to stay home today. But it's just that, yeah.
Well, tell me about the email I got from you in relation to your bio. What do you say about your summer?
Oh, I'm feeling fantastic, and I'm back to work, but I kind of wish I had the summer off.
So now you're talking like a true cop, right?
Yeah, like,
I know,
gosh,
it's
I really wish I had the summer off.
I know.
Yeah, life's amazing. And, you talk about organ donation and the impact. I never expected to get that news that you need new organs. Like nobody expects that. I think I would have accepted a diagnosis of cancer or my leg falling off or something more than you need a double lung transplant. And that journey in itself was just so amazing. And the people I met have been so amazing. And, at the end of the day, when that family has that discussion on their worst day of their life, and you've been there with families delivering that news, and I've been there, and they take that 5 minutes, then they have that talk about the legacy of donating their loved ones' organs, it's invaluable because there's people like me and my friends and people that we all know and love that are alive today. And that person is with you for forever. I literally carry my donor every day. And she's a part of her life. Her legacy has lived on. And I think that's just a really important message to get out there to people that, you don't expect it will happen to you, but it's pretty amazing when those decisions are made and so many lives are saved. And I think it's just kind of worth having that discussion.
What should our listeners know about that? What do we need to do? Is there an action that we need to do? Well,
there's always an option to sign up for organ donation. You can do that online. It takes, I think, 4 seconds in total. You can also just have that discussion with your family. What if this were to happen? This is something I'd like you to consider. The likelihood, less than 1% of our population dies in a way that they can donate their organs. But if you had that opportunity to save so many lives, why wouldn't you? And I think just to have the dialogue with people.
So I have literally the best job in the world. I get to talk to amazing people and learn some amazing things. And you are one of those people.
Thank you.
So what do you think helped you stay resilient? And what do you think helped you stay positive and come through the other side the way you are?
I had the support of a really good therapist. I found the person that worked for me. I know we talked to members about seeking help when you need it, but it's important to have that right fit. And he was with me from the beginning, and he's still with me. I think it was just never giving up. The days where it just felt overwhelming, I just stopped and took a breath and thought, no, this isn't going to beat me. I'm going to do this on my terms. And it was a day-to-day struggle sometimes, but I wasn't going to give in. And I think that sometimes we overwhelm ourselves with everything, and you just need to stop and just take a breath, take a knee, and just look after yourself, and everything else falls into place.
So I've had the good fortune, the privilege, I guess, or the honor to be able to do many of these podcasts. And there's some things I think that you've mentioned in your story that I want to capture that I think others have mentioned. And I think there's common themes. The first one is I want to talk a little bit about Stuart and family support.
Yeah.
Right. And you've mentioned his name numerous times and the amount of support you had from family, which is a critical piece of all this.
Yes.
And sometimes people going through traumatic incidents, first responders, don't have that level of family support. But we've got to find it somewhere, whether it's through a therapist, whether it's through friends, whether it's through some other method. But having that support on an intimate level is critical. And certainly I heard you say Stuart was an important piece of what you do.
Absolutely.
And your success.
Yeah.
You know, there's another piece that I think next that I've heard certainly Ray talk about when he talked about it, and heard many others talk and use the term own it, right? And really, when you turn around the words own it and you switch around the letters, it says to win, right? So you have to own it to win. And really what you did is you owned it. That whole way through, you decided that this is yours, it's up to you. And you made that conscious choice to make a difference. And often I hear about that light bulb moment that happens with most people where they decide that we're going to make this work. Mm-hmm. And it's enough to have the pity party to stop it and actually get to work on yourself. So I heard you say own it, which I thought was very valuable. Next thing I want to talk about is the support of colleagues, the support of the social network we have as first responders. The friends that we make in this, in the work that we do are lifetime friends. And they provide that kind of fun support that sometimes you need, that break from reality, right? Hank the Tank, right? Corporal Hank the Tank. I mean, that's hilarious, right? And it's so valuable for us to be able to have that. And, maybe I'll let you sort of do a little shout out to your workers as well during this whole time.
Well, I mean, they all know who they are, and they were part of my serious crime unit in those days. And I mean, without them, I don't think that I would have returned to work. And I don't think that our journey, both Stuart and I, would have been as smooth as it was. And the humor was endless. Mm-hmm. And maybe sometimes people would be offended by the way we joke, but it really was my kind of humor. And it brought me so much laughter and joy, which you need. You need to laugh until your lips turn blue. And it was just, like all of those people, I couldn't do it without any of them. Yeah. And they all know who they are. That's
wonderful. And the last piece I want to hit. So, I mean, we've heard about family support. We've heard about colleague support. We've heard about owning it and making that conscious choice to make a difference. And the final piece is physical activity.
Huge.
Sometimes, isn't it amazing?
Huge. Yeah.
Walking on a treadmill for an hour, watching Netflix, whatever you're watching. Game of Thrones.
No, it was Homeland. I was watching Homeland.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Yes.
That's a great show. Yes.
I watched a lot of Netflix on the treadmill. That, to me, kept me strong enough to get out of bed. I think that if I hadn't taken that conscious decision to walk every day, sometimes twice a day, and just lie about, I think that I wouldn't have been successful in getting out of bed and walking on my own. I think that pre-work I did was what saved me in the end. And the emotional well-being of just doing something, not just sitting there and letting yourself wither away. The fact that I was doing that just was invaluable to me, really. It helped me grieve. It helped me cope. It gave my caretaker a bit of a break from, he would just sit there and make sure I didn't, fall off or my oxygen fell off or anything, but he gave him a break to just stop and relax. And I think overall it was just amazing. And that was one of the first things I did when I started my recovery. Recovery is huge. And I found a trainer in a gym that had a really great little society and community, and just started from scratch. Literally, I could not take a pill cap off a bottle. I was so weak. And I found these great people, and they helped me. And today, I can take a pill cap off a bottle.
Well, I
quite
know by
easily.
your handshake. You've got a great handshake, let me tell you.
I think also that conscious decision to make sure that you build yourself back up again. It would be easy to just sit back and do nothing. It wasn't easy to go to the gym and start this rehab program that was painful and difficult, but in the end, it's what saved me.
Absolutely. So family support, colleague support, owning it, physical activity, having a therapist, all the important pieces that we hear on all these stories are also common. Anything else you would like to leave us with here today?
I think just the discussion to have with your family. Nobody expects that they're going to sit there one day and get delivered that news on a Tuesday afternoon that you're 40 years old and you're going to die. And the only reason you're going to live is if somebody else dies. Because that's the truth of it. It's going to be the death of somebody else for you to live. And that's a big burden to carry, right? But I think when we all have this discussion about organ donation, I think it really opens up possibilities, and takes a completely horrible, tragic time in someone's life and might just make it a little bit better. And I'm an organ donor, and my family's organ donors, and just something I'd like people to just talk about, really. And just to those members out there that are at home and, they feel like there's no hope for whatever they're going through, that they just never give up. And that there's people always out there that will be there for you. You just have to say the word, and, you just have to remember that you're part of a family, and everyone in this family wants you to succeed, and you just can't give up on life.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for Ray for being able to introduce us. So that's where I want to start, being able to sort of do my final summary in relation to what's important here. The second thing is that you're amazing, right?
Thank you.
You're an amazing person. So congratulations. And
Thank
I'm
you.
thrilled for your health. And the RCMP is fortunate to be able to have you working for them. So congratulations on that. But I think the biggest compliment I can pay for you is that you honor the people that gave you lungs.
Yeah.
So
and I honor her every day. And it's funny because you draw on that. You think, oh, today I don't feel like going to the gym, but no, I'm going because I have this gift and I'm not going to waste it. And it's part of the appreciation every day.
Well, that's wonderful. So I do have a gift for you, but it's not quite like lungs. Yeah, probably a good thing, right? Oh. So in the Delta Police, we have a little bit of a history, and you would know challenge coins, and obviously all first responders that are listening know about challenge coins, but we call it something a little bit different. We call it a commitment coin. And it's people that are committed to the profession, committed to seeing first responders be healthy. So it's my great pleasure to give us
thank you very much.
Our commitment coin. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for providing your story, because I think it's valuable and people will learn from it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's odd. It doesn't have a buffalo head on it.
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, the RCMP's main logo has a buffalo head on just about everything. That's right. Exactly.
Right. I was saying to Ray, it's odd walking around this building and there's not buffaloes hanging everywhere.
It's true. Yeah. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
These productions never come without a lot of work from everyone involved. A big shout out and thank you to Constable Aaron Hill, Melissa Granum, and Nikki Hewitt for producing and recording, and of course post-production done by Podfly. Next week on Bend, Don't Break.
We're always going to fight. We're police. If you go out and you go to a domestic and somebody starts to attack you, you just call for other police officers and then we win. We're always going to win. But he was trying to tell me that this is something you're not going to win.
For more episodes, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms like iTunes and Google Play. And don't forget to connect with the Delta Police Department on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, thanks for tuning in.